Welcome to the ultimate strategy guide for Civilization 7. All the videos on this channel have been exclusive to the Antiquity Age as up to this point. This will be the last video that we do on the Age of Antiquity before moving into the Exploration and Modern era. And we finish off the Antiquity era with a strategy guide for the entirety. Now, this isn't going to be a complete playthrough. Instead, we're going to be focusing on important parts of the game, and we're going to be starting it off with settling. Taking a look at the starting spawn that we've got here and the most optimal way we want to take advantage of it. I'll be leaving timestamps down below to each individual part of this video. It's probably going to be a longer one. I know you guys enjoy that. If there's a part that you think I'm waffling on, make sure you go ahead, check out the next timestamp, and hopefully that'll fix you up. Before we get into it though, if you want to play along with this seed, feel free to check out the Discord. We've got it over there. So go over and say g'day. We're playing with Trungtrak of the Persian civilization. We've got no mementos, and the reason we've picked these two is because Trungtrak has no innate SimCity bonuses other than the 10% science in Tropical, and the Persian Empire don't get any SimCity bonuses either. So we're basically looking to play and review what we know about SimCity and do our best to try and emulate that with a brand new civ, a brand new save with no bonuses whatsoever. It's on the Deity difficulty, we're on the standard speed. Let's get to it. So we start off with our spawn, and already you can see this is an insane spawn just from the amount of resources that we've got here. It's absolutely crazy. Now, one thing to note that you want to do early on is differentiate between the resources that you want now versus the resources that you don't want now. Those are really key. So resources that we want now are resources that give yields immediately. So here, kaolin is a great early resource because it gives us 2 food immediately. Compare that to camels though, which increases the number of resources that can be assigned to a city by 2. It's not a huge priority because our city is going to, doesn't actually have anything in there. It's got 4 slots that we can already take advantage of. The second component is going to be assessing the yields on those tiles as well. So as an example, kaolin is a resource that is used with a quarry. So it's improved with a quarry. And this is potentially good as long as the other tiles sync up. So now that we know that, let's talk about some other resources that are quite strong in the early game. Kaolin is one of them. Sheep are another great resource. It gives +2 production. Another one that is, or this is wool rather. Another good one is hides for +3 production. Dates are also good for 2 happiness and 2 food. Those are the primary ones that you're looking to go for. The next thing is identifying which tiles have you got more of, or rather, do you have enough rough tiles to justify going into mining? And that's always what I'm looking for in any start. The mining start is by far the best start in the game, so go for it wherever you possibly can. As long as you've got about at least 4 tiles that you can put a mine on, you're going to be in a good position. So if we take a look at this start, there is 1 mining tile here. There's a second mining tile on the jade. Even though jade as a resource is not very good, the fact that it has a mine on it and provides 1 culture makes it very, very nice in the early game. Our second is a quarry down here, which is basically a mine. It gets all the same bonuses. Then we've got another one, which is a mine, another rough tile, which is a mine. So just already from these 3, 4, 5 tiles, I know that this is enough to start with a mining start. Now, I could look at potentially going into a lumber camp opening or a woodcutter start. However, even though science is good, the production is truly the king in the early game. We've also got an iron tile out here, so there's no reason why we couldn't look to include this in our early opening. So now that we've got a bit of an idea on what resources we want to go for the kaolin, we want to go for the sheep, we know what tiles, or rather what improvements we want to be making. Now keep in mind, the way that we sort these improvements are based on their warehouse bonuses. So if we take a look here at the tech tree, there's 4 key warehouses. The first one is the granary, the second one is the fishing key, the third one is the brickyard, and the fourth one is the saw pit. And they all give bonuses to different things. The brickyard being the strongest, the saw pit being the second strongest, finally the fishing key being third, and then last we've got the granary, which is the 4th strongest. So those are the priorities, those are the orders. That's essentially the start. The final thing that we want to really be assessing is freshwater. We want to be looking at freshwater, and we want to be identifying where our freshwater tiles are. So that means either adjacent to a navigable river or on a minor river. So at the moment you can see that we're on a minor river, so that will reveal that we are indeed on freshwater. This is incredibly important because settling off this would reduce our happiness. So we start with 0 happiness. Putting down our city is going to give us 5 happiness off, and if we go off fresh water, that will give us a -5 penalty. And that basically just means that your first celebration is going to be slower. Your second policy slot will then be slower. There's a whole bunch of fallout. Just try and avoid it wherever possible. You don't want to move off that. And then the last thing that I'm typically looking for is going to be, where am I actually going to be placing my buildings if I settle in this way? So you can see there's quite a lot to assess in the early game, even just looking at settling. And we've done settling guides before, and I feel like we still didn't know what we know right now. So the final thing I'm looking for is, do I have places for 6 quarters that can come down around my capital? And in this position, definitely I do. I've already got some great adjacencies that I can see. I've got a monument that's going to get adjacency to this mountainous tropical, or this mountain rather, and I can also see a wonderful spot right here for a library. Now, arguably, you could also put a library down here, but this is on a rough tile, and we want to avoid putting our buildings on rough tiles because those are going to be our mine. So we want to try and keep them as much as we possibly can. Even this one right here is probably going to be the last tile that we look to replace around the capital, just because it's a mine and we want to make sure that we keep that. So this is a great little library spot, so we could potentially think about how we're going to open. So we could go, okay, this is going to be our monument. We know that this is going to be our library. We could look to put our saw pit on this tile, or our brickyard rather, on this tile, and then that's going to connect them out. That way we can expand down here in the south. We can also take the sheep, and we don't actually have to worry about coming out here until we've actually connected our library through. It just makes the transition a little bit more easier. But we're starting to visualize, we're starting to see how it goes. Let's get into it and take a look at the first couple of turns in the early game. So we'll settle our city in place, and always at the beginning of the game, it's going to be a scout. You just get so much value from the scout early on, and you might be tempted to come and take this this cave that we've got down over here. I would say avoid this. There's a really good chance that right now we're sitting at the edge of the continent, that there is no other civilizations over this side. And it means that we can always leave this for our second scout or even our third unit, which will in this case be a warrior. So let's go ahead and start off with our scout. Now, one of the things I love to do with my early scout is just after the first move, all I'm going to do is take one move like that, and we've spotted out some some incense. Jeez. Oh gosh. And we're going to hit the search button, and that is going to give us a little bit of a route that we can run. We want to prioritize cultural options wherever we can. So the Khan here might give us an option for culture. So we don't really have another option. I can't believe I just made that. That was a good mistake. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope YouTube doesn't demonetize us just for that. But you know what they're like. All right, so second up, we're going to go for a scout here, and this is going to give us our next population. And what we're going to do is we're going to start moving out towards the Kaelin. This is a high priority resource, and while I was talking earlier about the fact that we want to focus on mines, we want to do that after we've actually secured some early food. So we're going to start by taking this +2 food tile. But what we can actually do is we can get rid of this. We don't have to be working this farm forever. So we can put a building down here that is going to remove this citizen, and then we can get them over onto another tile. So that is not a problem at all. So now we'll go ahead and move out. So one of the things that we can look to do with this scout might be that we come down, collect this first, and then come back up. That's an option for us. But one of the things that I'm seeing is we're probably, I think we can definitely afford to do that. So we'll go one out here, and then we'll go a second one like this. And then what we'll do is we'll move one more tile. And then because we've got 2 tiles before we hit this, we're going to go ahead and hit the search button. And that is going to give us a free search here, because now we're always going to finish our turn ending right here. So we've got the option to gain 1 population in the nearest settlement, but it's going to slow our culture or food. We're going to take the food. Culture is way too important for us. We need to get to our current civic as quickly as possible. We need to get chieftain completed, and we need to get to mysticism, because we need to race towards our pantheon. Incredibly important. So now we're going to race out towards the Kaelin here, and at this point, now that we've secured the Kaelin, it's going to be inside our cap, and now we can think about moving out towards the sheep. So what we'll do is we'll wait for our next turn, and then we'll use some tricky little stuff. So let's go ahead and speed through these next turns. We're going to double back over here, and we'll grab that one. And of course, we're going to take culture wherever possible in the early stages of the game. And now we've got an option for a scout or a warrior. We'll go ahead and take a warrior here. The warrior can come back and collect this, and this scout can move up towards the north. So 1, and then 2, and then 3. That is perfect. So we'll go up into that direction, and now we'll continue moving out, and slowly we begin to make our way through these early stages, and now we can either go to the fields or for production. I'm much more tempted to go for the fields. The extra food is very nice in the early game. It's not going to quite grow us just yet, but there's no real reason for us to have production yet, just simply because we don't actually have the required amount of technology that's there. So the reason why is because we're looking to build our first building. So we'll go ahead here and we'll apply it to the fields, and on this one we can disperse an independent power, or we can have 2 monuments. Now, we will have 2 monuments in this game, but it's very likely that we also disperse an independent power. So I think we'll just take the safe option in this game right here. Keep in mind that we're looking to try and play things as straightforward as we possibly can. Okay, so now we've got our next expansion option, and once again, we want to race out towards the sheep. So this is one of those cool little techniques that you can do. We're going to go ahead, we'll take the first tile right here, and then we're going to put the granary down on this one, and we'll pop that citizen out. So by putting the granary here, it has evicted that citizen. So now we're going to bring the granary back down to the bottom, and we'll cancel it. And our warrior is still going to complete, but now we've got that 1 citizen that was in here, and we're going to now put that citizen over onto the sheep, which is going to give us 3 production here. So a nice little optimization that you can do in the early game. 30 culture, we're always going to take the culture. Our policies immediately finished. We can now plug in the extra 2 culture, and that's going to give us a nice little acceleration boost in this early stage of the game. Let's continue rolling over. Oh, that flood is loud. Is there anything that we need to repair after the flood? Just taking a look. It doesn't look like it, but we did get +1 production over here. So a nice tile yield is beginning to build here. So we've also now run into our very first, this wasn't really part of the plan, but we've also run into Samarkand. Now, this is just an incredibly good city-state to run into early on. Number one, they're hostile, which means we want to get rid of them as quickly as possible, whether through war or whether through friendship. And on top of that, they are also an economic city-state, which is a 2-for-1, because these are the most powerful early game city-states that you can get, because if you can befriend them, they will give you a resource that allows you to have an extra 4 production, which is absolutely wild. If we take a look at how much production we've actually got at the moment, we've only got 8 production, so being able to secure that early is going to be massive. So we'll now continue moving, making sure that we utilize our scouting ability, and then we'll jump over there on the next turn. Our warrior has come out. This has been synced up with our brickyard, and we'll move our warrior back over towards this position here. It's finally time. And let's take a look and see what technology we move into now. So now's a good time to talk about the optimal tech path. Keep in mind, this is what we've discovered as of the first month of Civ 7. This may change going forward. In a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, this could look completely different depending on balance patches, depending on discoveries. But at the moment, whenever you open with a mining start, currently the best follow-up is going to be animal husbandry. So we'll click that into masonry, and that's to get the +1 production on mines and quarries. It's a bonus. And then from here, we'll go up into writing, where we'll be able to build our library, and then we'll go into the writing mastery, where we'll get the access to steel technological advancement, which is significantly going to boost our science in the early game. After that, we then move into irrigation for the +1 settlement limit, and then from here, we can look to flex a little bit. That's what we've kind of uncovered at this point as to the direction in the early game for the techs. When it comes to, we'll drop down our brickyard just first and foremost. So we want to put our brickyard on this tile right here. And the reason why is because we don't really value this tile. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the granary back over here, and we'll put the brickyard on this tile. And now we'll pop the brickyard over to here. And then that way we can get around that little annoyance. We'll now move this one citizen over onto the iron. So we've now got all of the relevant tiles in the early game that we want to try and pick up. So let's talk a little bit about civics as well, because we are well and truly on our way towards it. So for your focus, the current thing that has been discovered is that chiefdom into mysticism is the most optimal opening, followed by discipline into code of laws, and then into the mastery. And this is for the steel government secrets, which is an espionage act that is going to be boosting your culture absolutely wildly. From here, I like to double back for the mastery for mysticism, just to get the +2 food in all settlements. But you can consider moving into your civilization uniques, or you could consider coming up the edges for entertainment or organized military. I normally like to leave citizenship open because it's quite expensive and the AIs often take this, so there's a good chance that you'll be able to secure this with an early government secret steal. So that's the direction, at least that's currently the way that it works at the moment. So we've got an option for 15 production to the capital, or 75 towards our next celebration. If we take a look at our next celebration, it is roughly in about 96 happiness, so that would almost push us to to that celebration right now. And if we were to map that out, it might not seem like much, but remember that we will get a second policy that we'll be able to add in. So if we could say, all right, that's going to be at least, let's say it's a 9-turn speed. That's 9 production and 9 science that we're getting versus this, which is going to be 15 production. However, the sooner we have the production online, the sooner we get our brickyard online, which means everything goes faster. So I think probably we want to take this just because it means it's going to accelerate, even if it's by 2 turns. That's 2 turns that we've got 2 extra production that's coming through as well. And our first meet, so we're aiming to be friendly here. So we're going to be greeting Pashakuti with a friendly friendly greet here. Now, there is an argument to say that maybe don't do this, just simply because we want to try and befriend Samarkand relatively soon. And we've gone ahead and we've met Tubman. Oh, Tubman's in the game. Oh, of course, Tubman's in the game. Oh, this is, you know, I'm just gonna, I'll give her the friendly greeting just because I think it's still the best thing that you can do. Even if you want to befriend a city-state, it's still the best thing that you want to do. So let's continue moving forward here. And we probably want to move away from the scout here. So we've got a scout. And one of the key things that we're looking for now is our first expansion. So the keys that we're looking for when we're looking for that first expansion are clusters of resources. Natural resources, if we can potentially, or rather natural wonders, if we can potentially get them, are going to be very nice. Now we've got our expansion here. I'm going to prioritize the food over the production because we're going to get a lot of production. So any little bit of food that we can grab as well with our mines is just a wonderful deal. So we'll go ahead and take that. And I think we want to move this scout and try and loop it around the top side because obviously we've got, this looks like it could be a relatively cramped continent. So just keeping that in mind, and we're going to take the gold here. We think gold is definitely the best case scenario right now, just because, excuse me, it gives us a little bit of flexibility in how we want to play and how we want to go about building our towns out. That is going to give us an option, but it looks like we could have a bit of trouble over here for Samarkand. We'll look to repel to the south. This scout is going to cover the north, and we want to make sure that we uncover basically all 360 degrees of our surroundings. I thought that was a rough tile. I didn't think he was going to be able to get me right there. So we'll go onto this tile now, and then we'll use our boost because next turn we'll be able to finish on this one. And it's Machiavelli. So our final player for today, or final leader for today, and we've given them all a friendly greeting to start them off with. So now that we've finished our brickyard, the standard thing to do from here is to just go straight into a settler. And the reason why is because there is contested settles out here and you need to get to them. So already I'm looking at one and I can see something that is beautiful. And that is this settle right here. I think is probably the best. This is going to have fresh water from this tile specifically. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to go 1, 2 into the cotton. This is a very forward position. And if we do take this, it is highly likely going to result in conflict. It will mean that both of these relationships deteriorate. It is not a safe call. And because it's not a safe call, maybe it's probably the best for this run that we don't actually do it. We want to play a little bit more of a safe playthrough. We want to avoid that wherever possible. That's ideally the goal. So we could go production and happiness, or we could go gold. Once again, we'll go for gold, just because we want to try and build up that gold number. Machiavelli is going to offer us happiness. We're definitely not going to be taking that. We're going to be looking to... Oh, we can't repel the scout because there's a cliff right there. Nice try, though. And we're going to continue moving. This is a nice little spot up here. We've got double mines. We've also got more mines. These are outside the capital. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mines. Very nice spot. Fresh water on this tile as well because of the water hole that we've got. So that's also a good spot. Once again, Machiavelli is going to offer us another agreement. We're not going to be taking it, primarily because we want Samarkand. We need to befriend Samarkand ASAP. So we do not want to take those deals. So once again, oh, look at this. Nice little mountain range that we've got here. I don't know where Machiavelli is. If I had to guess, I would say to the south, though, just because we've got one in the north, one in the west. So he's got to be to the south, right? That's the way my brain thinks about this kind of thing. Okay, it's turn 22, and Machiavelli has just forward settled us. And that means that we've picked up 60 influence, and that's going to be enough for us to take Samarkand and actually turn them over to our friends. Now, keep in mind we're 2 turns behind Pashakuti right here. He got a little bit of a jump on us because he hasn't met everybody and given them all friendly greetings, so he's got that in reserve. But let's talk a little bit about settling. We've got some information now that we didn't have previously that we can now utilize, and this is something I want to avoid. Machiavelli is notorious when it comes to multiplayer. He's in single player pretty good as well, primarily because he's got a bonus, which allows him to completely ignore any relationship requirements for declaring formal wars. This means he can march his army up to your borders, even though he's your best friend, and declare a formal war on you immediately, which means that you don't lose any war support, or rather you don't gain any war support. It's a huge component Because initially we were looking at settling and we were thinking, this looks like a wonderful little cluster of resources down here. We can send the cotton back, the kaolin back, we can send the dates back. Everything's going to be back here. We'll grab the camels soon. Things are going to be amazing. But then when you realize how close Machiavelli is here, it's probably not a good idea. Now, one other thing to note is that, yes, this is considered a forward settle, because a forward settle is not based on how close it is to your own city. It's based on how close it is to the other player's city. So if we take a look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tiles. Quite literally the exact amount or the limit. If he had gone for this tile right here, it wouldn't be a forward settle. We wouldn't have got that influence, but it was. So let's take a look and see exactly where we're going to settle up towards this top. This position right here looks like the best to me, just simply because what's going to happen here is not only is it very defensive, we've got the river tile that comes in, we've got the forest that's right here, and the mountain that's going to be blocking. We've got navigable rivers, which are very difficult to attack over, and that's going to create a very difficult choke point for the enemy to actually attack us. The only real person who can do it is going to be Tubman with her vegetation bonus, so this probably won't be too much of an issue, but we can definitely work around that. The primary thing here is that we're going to be taking this cotton, this gypsum, and we're going to be sending it back to the capital. We're going to be rolling it into new units. So let's go ahead and we'll move over towards that position. We'll start moving out our scouts as well. We've obviously spotted this out, so there's no way we're going to be forward settling him. We're still going to go for a settle. I'm thinking that this is probably going to be the best spot, just because that gives us instant access to the dates. We can send that back to the cap. And let's continue moving forward here. Now, we did also go into an immediate settler after this. So we've gone and followed up with the first settler straight away with the second settler. By taking this settler down right now, that was not what I expected to do. We're going to be looking for a mine here, so we've got a +2 mine that's here, or we can take the 1 food, 1 production, which is always going to be the right choice, because we're always adding more production to these mines, but we're never really getting a whole lot of food. So we can grab these a little bit later on, but the primary focus early on is going to be food. And now we're going to be able to send back this cotton as well. So let's go ahead and throw that into the cap. And we're going to move into discipline. So remember, following that key tech line that we're looking for, we're going mysticism into discipline, into code of laws. That's the primary goal, and then eventually get into the mastery. But now we've got access to our pantheon. Fertility rights has gone, which you would expect. This is the first one that goes in most games. City Patron Goddess is always the second one. Then the Wonders is also going to be gone as well. That's the one that's normally taken. And now you've got a decision. Do you go for stone circles, or do you just not take a pantheon? Because stone circles is the only one that you would really consider. And the reason why is this, okay? If you were to assess this start, and this is part of what makes the mining start just so powerful. If you assess this start, there's a fair bit of rainforest in here, and you look at it and you think, wow, science and production, that looks wonderful. However, if we look at the pantheons, all that you get offering is +1 gold on camps and woodcutters, which means that this now gets an extra piece of gold, which is lovely. Great, an extra gold. I've got, 10 tiles, 10 gold. Wonderful. However, have a look at how the game actually treats gold in relation to production. Here we've got a scout, which is going to cost us 30 production to build. If we wanted to purchase that scout, that same scout is going to cost 120 gold, which means that it's a 4-to-1 ratio with regard to production and gold. So for every 4 gold that you've got out over here, it would be equivalent to just a single bit of production that you get on a mine, which is why when we look at pantheons, that's why this Stone Circles pantheon is one of the best in the game. Arguably, I'm almost tempted to say as good as City Patron Goddess. I think there's definitely a world where you could go or argue for both of these in competitive games. So we'll go ahead, we'll take that. Now, keep in mind that doesn't come online until we've got our altar. And we need to continue considering where we're actually going to be putting down this city. So there's 2 primary locations that I'm thinking about. The first one is this one. The second one is a more contested position over here. There's also a third option, which at the moment I'm not really throwing down, but it is up towards this top side right here. I think is going to be a great spot. It's not really contested though. If we look right now, there's an unlikely chance that this gets settled. It doesn't look particularly high priority. There's not a massive cluster of resources. The main focus here is that this is going to become a city. It's going to have a huge amount of production that we're going to be able to utilize. It's got good rough tiles in there that we can take advantage of. So that for me is the focus here. So I think we'll go for this settlement here. And then we'll look to focus a little bit more, because this will take us up to 3 out of 3 settlement limit. We ideally don't want to go above that in the early game if we can avoid it. And we only want to go above it if we can't avoid it, and that would be a circumstance such as contested settlements. That's the primary factor. So we'll go ahead, we'll move our scout over towards the dates tile. I think we'll heal him up for a little bit on that position. And for the moment, with our warrior, we can just look to chase away the enemy or chase around the enemy. We'll go ahead and get production out. Now, there's an argument for that next settler, but I think the altar is going to make the most sense. It's for production, science, culture, and happiness in here. Those are huge yields, 8 yields that are coming in on this single tile. And we're going to look to double it up with the brickyard. There is an argument that you could put it out somewhere else as an example. If we look in here, there's a really good spot for I was going to say a campus, a library, and it's right here. You've got 1, 2, 3 adjacency for it. But the trouble is, this is in the third ring, and that's the problem with this tile. So as an example, this is also in the third ring. You want something that's in either the first or the second ring for your library. And that's because you don't have a lot of buildings to extend out there at this stage. And if you do have those buildings, you'd much rather them double up so that you can take advantage of the palace adjacency bonus. So as we roll through these turns, and we'll try and go through quickly because this is an important key in the early game. We're at 4 turns here. This is a trap. We do not want to take this because we want to put our influence into Samarkand. We're still a little bit behind. We'll go ahead and we will heal up. So we're just going to use the lookout because it does the exact same thing as healing. And up towards this top side. Oh, I don't like that. The look of that. But yeah, get on out here. Was that a Tubman settler as well that I just saw? Looks like it could have been Pachacuti trying to bait us in once again. Look at Pachacuti. He's really trying to flex on us with all the influence that he's got. We've got 100 now in the bank. We're going to go ahead and do that. And that pushes us up a huge amount. Give me that production, baby. That's what we're after. And we're still looking to chase that scout away. What is it? It's a Toltec scout. So have we even met the Toltec? Other than this scout, it doesn't look like we have. I'm not too fussed about them. I'll be honest with you. I think you can come back down this way and give us a little bit more line of sight. So this here is going to be our golden tile, and we'll continue scouting out. And now we've almost got that next production. Tubman's going to give us a little bit of influence for free. We'll happily take that. And now this is going to be a forward settle. This is a guaranteed forward settle. There's no way to get around it. If we take a look at this, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just to count that again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anything within that limit is going to be considered a forward settle on Machiavelli. So look, the way I'm thinking is if you're gonna call me a rude word when I settle 10 tiles away from you, I might as well settle 3 tiles away from you. So let's go ahead and do that. On top of that, we'll make sure that we never take any further than the dates tile, because his borders will extend out to these tiles right here, and there will be a negative multiplier that will occur. Well, not multiply, but a negative relationship bonus that will occur when our borders touch. So we want to avoid that at all costs. Now, when it comes to consolidating power in the capital versus distributed power, I almost always go for distributed power. We're looking to have about 3 to 4 cities in any standard playthrough. We'll move the dates over to the capital, and we'll take a look at our scout. We could look to get an extended vision, but we kind of know already what's happening through here. And there we can see the Tubman settle. Our altar has got 1 turn left on it. We'll take that growth. We'll look to take the cotton and expand those out. From here, we want to get rid of the kaolin because it's only giving us 2 food versus the 2 food and the 2 production in the capital. And we'll go ahead and move this scout through once again. It looks like this is some good land. This is really good land. Look at all this rough, and gold, one of the best resources as well. If you've got a mine start and you've got gold in your capital early, it is incredible to have. Now we've got the altar that's come through, so the altar is going to be providing that +1 production over towards all of our tiles here. And to me, it just makes total sense because now not only do we get the production on all of these tiles, we also get the bonuses towards the palace. And now you've got a question. Do you continue to settle more in this position, or do you look to go into infrastructure? So for me, I think the most important thing when you're assessing this is how serious of a threat is the enemy when it comes to forward settling you. Tubman is rather notorious for forward settling. We've already got a bit of I'm not going to say this is a forward settle. It looks like there is going to be a way through, so if he wanted to, he could settle down here. And it's not even this spot, right? Like if he takes this spot right here, then it blocks us out of this, and this is the best tile right here. You could argue for this, but then it's going to steal potentially from the cap down here. So I think moving out to a settler sooner rather than later is probably going to be the right call, and then we can look to go into some infrastructure. But at this stage of the game, when it comes to our settling, that's pretty much it. The key here is that we're looking in our first couple of towns. You want to try and get those resources that you can send back to the cap, funnel them in. Because if we take a look at the difference between our cap without those resources versus with those resources, we can't actually get rid of them, but it's 2, 4, 6 production. It's 2, 4, 6 food, and it's 2 happiness, or rather 4 happiness as well. So it is, we're looking at a significant boost to our early yields just by making sure we prioritize all of our settles. on those resources that can be sent back to the cap. It doesn't matter whether we turn them into a city. It doesn't matter whether we keep them in as a town. The most important thing is we get those resources back to the cap and they start working immediately. Now, there's obviously a world where if your cap is amazing and you've just got, you know, cotton, you don't need to go do that, right? But in most circumstances, you can take that rule and you can apply it pretty much everywhere. Let's move over onto our next point. Okay, it's turn 33 and you're about to see the power spike occurring for our capital. Currently, we've got 21 production in the capital, but the moment we roll over, we've got our masonry that is going to be finishing, and that's going to improve all of the tiles that we've got that are mines. And now all of a sudden, we're up to 25 production. We are really starting to kick it into 5th gear in the cap. Production is the key to success in the early stages of the game. Having lots of production in the cap is going to be absolutely instrumental. While we do that, we're just going to go ahead and repair this tile because it looks like there was a flood that occurred, so we'll go ahead and fix these up. We've actually just grown over here, which means we can send back some gypsum. And one of the key things to note now is that with that power spike, we're going to be able to potentially look at wonders as an option. So once we start unlocking some technologies, we should be able to afford getting these wonders out and start working towards our cultural legacy path. On top of that, it means that in the event that we do get war decked, we obviously saw the amount of units that were down here for Machiavelli, that there is a possibility that we can just get out a whole bunch of units. Now, we'll go ahead and play through a couple of turns here. So if we take a look, we've completed masonry. So now we're going to head up into writing, then down into the writing mastery. Another important component is picking up the monument that unlocks at this after you've completed masonry. So getting the monument out early is going to be absolutely important. Now, down towards this position, we had already put the granary down, and you can see that we're having a bit of trouble here because we want to put the monument in a different position. We want to put it right here next to the mountain, and we can't do that because of the early granary. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the granary back in, and then we'll go ahead and put the monument over on this tile, and then we'll just move the granary up like that, and then, or rather, we put the monument back up, and there we go. Now we've got the granary that's no longer being built, and we've sorted ourselves out. Let's go ahead and allocate some resources. So just keeping in mind, I think this is probably something I sort of left out earlier, was there's city resources, there's bonus resources. Bonus resources can go anywhere. So as an example, we can take these dates right here, and we can just put them into a town. And the reason why we'd want to do that versus just leaving the kaolin out to the side, even though the dates are a better resource because it gives you happiness, that happiness is still going to be transformative in the town. It's still going to be adding to your golden age. So by putting the kaolin in, we're not actually missing out anything by doing that. And on top of that, the happiness that we're getting, or rather the food that we're getting, is now going into Kusa town. On top of that, if we take a look at the wool, we are getting 2 production, 2 happiness, and the exact same thing goes for that. So we'll go ahead and put the gypsum in instead. Now, one thing to note is we're going to be looking to get a city up by turn 50. That is normally my goal. I want to see 1 city online by turn 50. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move all of the resources over to that city to start getting it online as quickly as we can. And I'm thinking that this is going to be our city. It's got a lot of production in here. It's a nice, safe position. It doesn't have particularly strong adjacencies, but I can see, you know, this right here is a decent spot. We can look to put a world wonder on either side of them, and then we can even potentially throw one down over here, and we could probably hit this up to about a 4 adjacency, which isn't a terrible adjacency. So that's going to be our key focus. So let's go ahead. We'll play through a couple of turns here, just as we continue across the map. We've spotted out the caps here for both of these guys. We'll continue moving through, and we've got a denouncement from Machiavelli. Now, there could be an option to cancel this right now. You could say, I want to cancel it, but I'll give you a hot tip. If you do it, it doesn't really change much. Machiavelli has got the ability to war deck you at any point in the game with absolutely no consequence. He can just declare a formal war. Now, it makes it more likely that he's going to go to war with you if you don't accept this, but what do we gain by realistically doing this when we could just take that 120 and then save it for war support? And in the event that there is a war, look, we would want to avoid it, and typically, you know, but Machiavelli, at the end of the day, he's got no other neighbors. It's almost certainly going to be us that he war decks eventually. So I think in this circumstance right now, we're just gonna let it go. Machiavelli, you want to declare that you don't like us, that is absolutely fine. And we've got another one through on the same turn, and this is just a consequence of forward settling, right? This is how friction builds in Civ 7, and this is a key component. If you are constantly getting in wars, it can largely be because that you've spawned so close to people. And on this continent in particular, this is a very small continent for 4 players to be on. So there's going to be more war on a continent like this. Now, for Pashakuti, on the other hand, who we've already forward settled, I'd be a lot less hesitant to allow that one to go through. So what we're going to do is we're going to cancel that. Sorry, Pashakuti, you're not denouncing us, at least not today. And that is just simply because it's quite easy for us to defend this front. We've got a lot of terrain that is really going to be beneficial for us. Whereas this over here, it's very far away. We can still defend on this city, but it is not going to be an easy one to defend, that is for sure. It's going to be a little bit more complex. We've taken the silver down here to the south, and now we want to work towards the silk, but is that a trap? It could be a trap. And the reason why is because silk doesn't really provide you much. It's a great resource, don't get me wrong, once you're sitting at like turn 100. At turn 36, though, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So the key focus here is going to be to focus on the actual resources that are around you. Take what's best. In these circumstances, though, I'm looking around, I'm thinking, you know what? It's probably just going to be best that we focus on farms. So we'll go ahead and do that. We will look to try and feed up the capital or a connected city potentially a little bit later on. We don't have the greatest production in here. We do have a couple of forests, but with regard to rough terrain, it's nothing like down here or up towards this position. So let's go ahead and we'll convert this one into a city. It's going to connect it up to the network, and immediately we can look to try and get some iron on board. But one of the key things that we would want to do is want to get food rolling out here. So what we can do, we can purchase the granary. We can even look to get a farm down early on because this needs to turn into a city. We want to turn this into a city sooner rather than later, and that's going to mean building up that population. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a granary down. We can go ahead and just put it down in the capital just like that, and then from here we can just throw down a farm on the outside. Even though it might make more sense at the moment, or it might make more sense to take this in the long term, this is going to make more sense because it means that we can bring this into a city for a more affordable price a lot sooner. So let's roll over the next turn. We've had 2 war decks on us. Well, not war decks, rather. But we have had 2 denouncements on us. And now, I mean, this is something that's specific to Trung Trak. So just keep that in mind that with Trung Trak, this is her thing. It's nobody else's. It's also a combination with Persia that you can do. And it's basically where you can have the most cracked commander from the very beginning of the game. And the reason why I did that, or went for these, this combination here, is if we take a look, you'll see that we have got the ability. We start off with the first, which is called Initiative, and then we go up one side completely all the way to the bottom, and then we take that bonus as well, and now and there you go, you got your maxed out commander to start at level 37. And it means if in the event that we ever get war declared, we're going to be easily able to defend with our advanced level 4 commander already. So we've now got another citizen that we're going to be able to position or to be able to take. And I think a key component here is moving into camels. Camels give you a lot of flexibility. Even though 4 production is nice, it still gives you 2 production. So we're going to go ahead, we'll take the camels. And on top of that, we've also got a migrant. And we always want to, whenever we've got a migrant, we want to try and save it for the beginning of a citizen. And that is because it's going to give you 100% of the food required for that citizen, and it will roll it over. So if you're over at like 75%, it will roll that food over to the next citizen. And because of the way that food costs work for citizens, it means that your next citizen is going to be a lot more expensive than your previous one, which means you're not going to get as close to that or to finishing that citizen. So let's go ahead now, and with this citizen, where could we look to put this down? I'm thinking that the mines are going to be beneficial. We could also look to take the wine. We could even come out towards this and then eventually move into the jade, which also wouldn't be too bad because this will become a very nice tile. And this technically gives us the most yields. Let's just double check and see. What else are we going to be moving into at this stage? Yeah, I think this is absolutely fine. Let's go ahead. We'll jump out over onto this tile right here, and then you can see that jade tile is going to be absolutely beautiful. That's a 6 yield tile that we'll be looking at for the next time that we grow. So let's go into Code of Laws, and then now we can look at expanding out our infrastructure because we're already up to 4 settlements. We're above our settlement cap. The next settlement cap that comes in is going to be at irrigation, and it's going to be at least 20 turns away. So we're already working with that negative happiness. We're only sitting at 7 happiness, which means our celebrations are going to be quite slow. You can see it's going to be in 8 turns, which actually isn't that bad. That would be quite good for us, the fact that we're only 8 turns away. But I think moving into our production is going to make a lot of sense here. There's still no sign of any presence down towards the south. So that is another factor in, should we, oh my lord, look at the name on that bad boy. Should we be moving into military? At the moment, it doesn't seem like we should. And even if we do, we've probably got the ability to hold this quite a while with our special general. So let's go ahead and let's drop this bad boy in, and we'll take the granary here as well. And let's take a look. Now, we could also move these back to the cap, which probably isn't the worst idea, just because we always want our cap to be pushing. Though there is definitely an argument. I'm going to go do that right now. There is an argument that you want to put the dates in your town that you want to grow. So we'll go ahead and do that before we forget. So that's very, very important. We want that city to come online as quickly. And there we go. There's a bit of movement on this unit. This tile in particular is looking very, very seductive. We're going to be leaving it for the moment, though, because if we do take that, there's the risk that our borders come up, and we do not want to inflame intentions further, even though he's already denounced us. I mean, can you get much worse than that? Probably not. We've got another 6 turns before we come online down here. And we continue a lot of Medjays up towards that top side. How are these two doing? Let's take a look and see. He's neutral with everybody. So hopefully they start denouncing each other soon. And we probably don't want to move too close or too far down here. We can also bring this up, just because if we do get war declared, there could be trouble. Let's just put it that way. All right, plus 50 gold, we'll take that. We're up to 398 gold right now, and we can use that to flex even further. We don't need anything more up here. We don't have any mines that we're working. The main focus at this stage is going to be food. Keep in mind, once this city really comes online, we can get rid of these tiles. It's about, in the early stages of this city, or rather this town, that we want it to be a city, making sure it's got all the food that it needs to grow quickly. That's the key component that we're looking for here. Let's try and do a little bit more exploring, and I think we can probably roll over at this point and talk about our next point. It's turn 43. We're about to roll over, and next turn, our city-state, our economic city-state, is going to be becoming our suzerain. This is an incredibly important time, as we are now going to have access to a new resource. That new resource, well, let's take a look and see exactly what it is. It's gemstones. It provides +4 production in the capital and gives 5% gold. So what that means is we can take out one of our existing tiles, or rather one of our existing resources, and we can put that wool over somewhere else, and we can put the gemstones in, and that's going to give us 4 production, which is absolutely amazing when you think about just the value that you're getting for that specific tile in that place on your city. On top of that, now that we're a suzerain of the city, it means that we can see everything that they see, and one of the things that they see is that Machiavelli is completely locked in down towards the south side. The only way he's getting out, I wonder, has he actually met anybody else? Okay, he has. He's only hostile with us, and that's part of the next point that we're going to be talking about, which is managing military. So at the moment, we're now looking to begin setting up a defense for what might be the inevitable. So one of the key things that we're going to look to do is keep a unit in the city just so that it doesn't get taken. We want to make sure that we do that, and we also want to start building up fortifications. So fortifications are going to give us a defensive bonus whenever we're attacked into. It's going to mean that our units are a little bit stronger throughout these fights. So we'll go ahead and accept some of these quests. We're moving towards writing number 2, also known as the mastery, and we've got that opportunity to put down our library right now. And don't be fooled by the yield. You might think that a 4-1 is better than a 4, but I assure you right now it is not, because we're going to be putting the villa in this tile. That'll complete this one. Even though in the short term it makes sense, this is definitely the right play, because we can stack this up. We can get a whole bunch of world wonders around this, and that +4 can become effectively like a +7. We can easily achieve that, and we'll be looking to do that in this game. So that is going to be our bonus here. Keep in mind, if we did actually take this tile, think about it from this perspective, okay? Now, if we take this tile, it's a +3. That's our base yield. But we need to get in there in the first place, which means we need a building here, a building here. We can't build a wonder on this tile because we've got to connect that in with a building. Now, technically, you could build you could put an urban district here, and you could put the Dur Sharakin here, and you could build the library right here, but ain't nobody got time to build the Dur Sharakin before they build their library. You'd be absolutely mental to try and do that. But mad respect if you did. Yeah, in this circumstance, it's going to make a lot more sense to get the library down first. So we are posted up on this little position. We don't want him to be able to get through onto the other side and potentially flank us. So we're not going to be accepting open borders if he does come offering them for us. And that sounds like it might be it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been caught in war. Machiavelli is now war declaring us. How are we going to deal with this? That is a good question. So the first and foremost thing that we are going to be doing is, once again, making sure that we look to fortify our cities. We'll be saving up a little bit of gold here, just in the event that we need walls further down. On top of that, we're going to make sure that we fortify our positions here, and we're going to be looking to focus down these units. So if we take a look at this tile, we should be able to get into this one and still have movement left over. So now what we can do is we can use our focus fire from our commander, and that's going to allow us to focus down this unit here. So we've done a decent amount of damage here. The main thing that we'd be worried about is if he tried to come up and attack one of these ranged units. That's going to be the primary focus, or the primary thing that we'd be cautious about. Here we've got an option for gold, or to take the free gold, and we're going to take the free gold just mainly because we need our influence. At the moment, he's got a 0 war weariness bonus, we could push that up, but you can see that at the moment we kind of want to keep that in the bag just in case we could get an offer. I don't know if Tubman's got it. Military aid. We could actually go into military aid here. It wouldn't be terrible. It's going to give us +3 combat strength. The question is, who's going to take this? We did just get an offer from Pashakuti, so there's a chance he doesn't have influence because he's just spent it, and we could potentially go to Tubman, but there's a chance she rejects us. So what I'm going to do is we'll offer to Tubman first. If she rejects us, we'll then spend the influence on Pashakuti. So she rejects it, so we'll instead go to Pashakuti. At the very least, he will accept it, and hopefully he supports it. Oh, that's even worse. Nobody wants our extra. And look, I guess that's the consequence of going for a forward settle like this. But these are the preparations for war because, well, things don't always go peacefully when you are playing these games. And you can indeed see that he has come through onto this tile. He's been baited back towards this position and has done some significant damage here to our slinger. But of course, we are building the line. We're going to have to go down and defend this town. We know that there's going to be a lot more hoplites, but we've got a lot of bonuses that we've stacked up. As you can see, we've got plenty working towards us. So our defense here shouldn't be too difficult. Let's go ahead and focus down this unit, and we'll be able to continue with our fortifications. And that means that now that our library is completed, we can go ahead and start producing a few more units. We've also gone unhappy in this city because he's gone and spent on some war weariness, so we can go and support ourselves here, and that should bring us up a little bit, but obviously we would still prefer to be able to take the other agreement. Let's continue now. Moving on, our fortifications have been completed, and we'll be scouting out. But it kind of feels like the whole lobby may declare war any second on us right now. So now we want to begin moving down towards this city to protect it. We're not going to be able to make it immediately, but we'll do our best to get down there. We'll move our general down as well. And one of the key things that you want to be looking to do in war is making sure that you let the town absorb fire when it's in circumstances like this. You could use your warrior to attack out here, which is definitely a smart move in the sense that you're now going to be able to repair on that warrior. But one of the key things to watch out for is if you kill this unit, you're going to be then coming out and overstepping your boundary, and that means that you could get flanked and subsequently lose the unit. So we need to be very, very cautious of that here, because we're now in war. We're also going to be focusing on iron. That's going to be really key for us. When it comes to war, stacking up these little bonuses that you get. So if we take a look here at the general, you'll see that we've got a 35 bonus. Even though we've only just got a level 1 warrior here, we've got so many bonuses that are stacking, and each little one of those is incredibly important to how these fights play out. So that's going to be a key component here. But we'll go ahead. We might grab another slinger as well. I think 4 slingers is quite good, especially before we move into the hoplites. We're going to sleep that scout because we want it to come around the back, and we need to wait for sailing before that happens. We've also got the volcano here that's going to be defending us as well. Thank you very much, volcano. And I think we'll look to try and take this tile when we can, because there's some good yields here. And even if we take it, I mean, at this point, our borders are already touching, so he's expanded out towards this position, so it's not too much of a muchness. So we'll leave the war section of this game, or of this fight, to this point, because there's going to be a lot more units that come out. There's going to be a lot of fighting. We're on turn 48 now. Let's see where we end up. It's turn 52, and we've repelled the attack from Machiavelli, at least for the moment. It's difficult to get into this terrain, but he never really put up too much of a fight. The main trouble that he's got is this volcano is actively spewing out lava. We're taking advantage of it with the yields that we've got, but it's time to talk about city transformation, turning a town into a city. And this starts at the very beginning of the game, planning out exactly where you're going to be putting those cities. And now it is time for us to convert our city over. Now you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, well, hold on a minute. Your city up here has got 4 turns remaining until it turns into until it goes up to 7 population. Why are you doing it now? Well, the reason why is because we can take advantage of a pretty cool mechanic that reduces the cost of this down. So if we take a look here, what we could do is we can put the brickyard on top of this farm, and that's going to reduce the cost. Once we put this down over on this position, that'll reduce the cost down to 350. And the reason why is because each building that you put down, it depends on the variables, but I think it's every 1, 3, 5, 7 that you put down in a town. Obviously, that can only go up to 5, but I think there's probably circumstances where you could get 7 if you're playing Rome and you get the happiness, the happiness crisis. But I'm sure that's probably off topic. Anyway, the point is we've reduced the cost of getting the city online right now by 50 gold, and we've also got extra production for it online now through the brickyard. What that means is that we can now essentially upgrade the city at a discount of 50 gold because we always wanted that brickyard in the first place. So let's go ahead, grab our city, and our focus here early on is our yields. We want to get our yields up as quickly as we can. Now, there is an option to move into an altar, but the main focus early on has been growth. We haven't really been focusing on a whole lot of mines, so our main priority here is just getting our growth going on. We don't, or rather our yields going on. We don't have a lot of options with regard to putting down a high value monument, so we're just going to go ahead and stick with what we know, and we'll just keep it close to the city center and throw it down here. After that, we're going to follow up with a library, and that is because as soon as we get our monument online, it's going to start pushing up our culture. At the moment, we're having a little bit of trouble, and we want to try and get towards this mastery as quickly as we can. Meanwhile, we've already completed our mastery for writing. The only trouble is that we can't really focus on stealing at the moment, just primarily because we're at war with Machiavelli, and we need to keep our war influence at a relatively manageable level. At the moment, our war support is -1. You can see our next level is going to cost us 120, and we need to throw up, is it actually going to be worthwhile doing it? You can see how playing as Tubman would be incredibly beneficial right now, because not only would our base war support start at 5 for a war declared against you, but on top of that, it would mean that you'd be able to constantly be doing espionage actions while you're at war, because they're so much cheaper than all of the other leaders. And this is why Tubman, in my opinion, is the best leader in the game at the moment, as of the making of this video. It may change in the future. Who knows? Maybe Trung Track is hiding something that we just haven't found yet. So let's talk a little bit about what we do when we set up a city. We've obviously gone through the buildings that we're looking to optimize, but one of the key components of any early game city is a resource transition. If you've ever played StarCraft, you'll be familiar with the mena transfer, which is where you basically take all of your workers from your first base, bring them down to your second base. It's the exact same thing that's happening here. So we'll go ahead, now that we've got this city, and what we're going to do is we're going to start moving out some resources that are production focused. In particular, we want to move the kaolin out, we want to move the gypsum out, and we want to move the second gypsum out. Let's have a look and see exactly why that is. So if we move the camels across, that's going to give us 4 potential resource slots for us to use. The gypsum gives 2 production to the capital, but 4 production to any other city. So we want to get this bad boy over as quickly as we can. On top of that, the kaolin does the same. I don't know whether we can actually stick the resources in, the gemstones in here, but it looks like we can. Now, there's an argument to probably just keep this in the cap, just because we're getting good value from the cap anyway, and we're working on some other stuff in there. So we'll go ahead and we'll move the cotton down here. And of course, we'll throw all the rest of the resources back into the cap now. When it comes to the capital, we're actually working on the Dur-Sharakin. We've got a nice little spot that it's building for us here. This will be giving us a +1 adjacency bonus to the library, as well as a +1 adjacency bonus to the altar. It will also be giving any further things that get built along the outside a +1 adjacency bonus. And we'll be looking to build more world wonders around this library so that we can stack up these bonuses even more. One of the great things about putting down another city here is that you can take advantage of this. So if you're able to build all of your wonders clustered together on the outside of your on the outside ring of your city, then you can bring a second city in and then take advantage of those from the other side. The key is that it needs to be a city. It can't be a town. And that's why this, even though it doesn't look like a good location to settle, it actually represents a very good location to settle, simply because we're going to be able to take advantage of those adjacency bonuses. So that's it when it comes to transferring a city over, or a town over, to a city. Let's move on over to our next point. It's turn 57, and it's time to talk about maximizing your adjacencies. We've already touched on an earlier adjacency with regard to the library, and we've now completed the Dur-Sharakin. However, there is an adjacency that's hiding somewhere in this space that I want you to take 3 seconds, pause the video right now, and try and find it. Go on. See if you can find it. Yes, that's correct. It's this tile right here. This is an incredible tile for adjacency. Not only does it have 1, 2, 3, 4 rings of water around it, it means that we're going to be able to put 2 buildings on here, the garden as well as the market. Now, when you unlock your irrigation technology, which we've just done, it might be tempting for you to click that garden and be like, you know what, 3 food, 1 culture, 1 science, that's pretty damn good. I'm going to go take that right now. Or you might even look out a little bit further and say, well, hold on a minute, 4 food's better than 3 food. Let's go ahead and take that. But the real thinkers will go ahead and say, I wonder what world wonder goes on a river that I could then piggyback that out onto this tile with. Because remember that with a world wonder, you get that adjacency bonus as well. So that means that this tile, if you can put a world wonder on it, not only acts as a connector to get out here and to put an urban district on, but it also acts as an extra water tile for the purposes of adjacency. And that world wonder is the same world wonder that is unlocked at irrigation. That is the Hanging Gardens, one of the best world wonders in the game. This offers an incredible amount of bonuses. Let's take a look and see. I want to try and actually see the stats on it. Give me a sec. Here we go. +1 food on farms. You don't care about that. 10% growth rate in all cities is incredible. Faster growth is amazing. It reduces the total cost of those citizens. And then 1 expansionist attribute point, which is incredibly powerful. The further you get down the expansionist tree, the better. On top of that, it gives you the adjacency bonuses, and it allows you to get a little bit more flexibility in here. So we're at 8 turns to build this. It's unlikely that we get it at this point, but we're going to give it a good college try. We've got some strong production here in the cap at 35. If we take a look, is there any way for us to get any more production back here? We could siphon production out of Bactria City right now. However, it's already doing its own thing, and we probably don't want to interrupt it. But we can keep that in mind just moving forward, that if we do connect any more resources to the network, let's try and bring those resources back into Parser, just so that we can get this world wonder out as soon as possible. It's turn 61, and it's time to talk about specializing towns. Now, before we get to that though, let's just talk about Machiavelli. We're currently at -2 on war weariness, and that means that our towns are taking a hit. If you take a look at Parser, we've got only 4 happiness in here. So it's in our benefit to actually end this war as soon as we possibly can, rather than actually continuing it going. So what we're going to do is go ahead and request peace, and you'll see that we've just got the ability to just request peace straight away. So we'll just go ahead and propose it, and then immediately what that's going to mean is we've now got a huge boost to our happiness. We went from 8 to 24, Parser goes from 4 up to 10, and we are happy little campers in our empire. So we want to try and prioritize ending wars as quickly as possible, unless we actually want to try and gain something from those wars, like taking cities, or just getting a better position so that you can argue for cities in that final position. But let's talk a little bit about towns and specializing them. Normally, and this is something that will come with time, you'll get better at understanding which town is going to become a specialized town, which one is going to stay a town, which one is going to become a city. But Kusa, from the get-go, in my mind, was always going to become a specialized town. It was always going to do that, primarily because of the 2 cotton that are here. The 2 cotton are plantations, and they gain bonuses from the granary that is inside here. So naturally, you're incentivized to invest further into tiles that benefit from the granary. Technically, you could put down a brickyard, and there's an argument to make that you could have gone for gypsum, you could have gone for the marble. However, it's got limited returns compared to the granary. So by putting down the granary, we're able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles that are all getting bonuses from that, and then we can move into our specialization, which is going to be the farming town. Now, when do you actually do this? That's a great question. We've got 14 turns remaining until our next citizen. Now, we could increase that by putting in some dates to make that tick over a little bit faster, but that's going to take some time. Those 14 turns, what are we going to get at the end of those turns? Well, we're going to get a tile that's got 2 food, 1 production, and a happiness. And you need to calculate, based on how long you think the game is going to go, how much value that's going to give you. Is it worth waiting 14 turns just for another 2 turns of production? Or rather, another 2 turns of food? If you were to think about that, that's 28 food that, or rather, if we wait for those 14 turns only for 2 food, it's really not going to be a huge difference, because already we're sitting at 19. That's now going to go from 19 up to 25. So then this tile just becomes 28. So now you're looking at the difference between 25 and 28. And I'll be honest with you, I want that advantage right now. So if we take a look at Kusa, we'll see that it is now sending its resources, and it's going straight to Parser, which is our capital. But that's a problem. We want it sending out to Bactria as well. So to do that, what we're going to need to do is have a trader. So at the moment, we've got an altar that's in production. So let's, sorry, not a trader, a merchant. Let's call it correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring that merchant up to the top of the queue. We're not going to overtake the altar, because that's quite an important thing. That's extra production that we're going to be getting for all of our mining tiles that we've got out here. So that's going to be important. Actually, you know what? While we're here, let's go ahead and just... is there something that we can put on top of this? Are we able to put down the garden on top of that? I don't think we can, not right now. There's probably a way for us to do that. Let's go ahead, hold on. I'm going to do this and we'll put the garden down and then put that to the top. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a way for us to do it right. There we go. And then we bring this one up to the top. That's going to kick that citizen out. We can then put that up. And now we can reallocate this citizen over to a more relevant tile that might be production-based, because we've got to the city now. And now we can actually convert this over. So I'm now that we've got that extra production, I'm kind of tempted just to put the merchant at the top. And what we're then going to do, we'll roll over the turn. We've ended the war. Oh, that was the Hanging Gardens. Hanging Gardens just went. That's terrible. Machiavelli of all people. Where was it? somewhere in this empire. He's got the Great Stelly. There it is. So we obviously just didn't check. And look, that's a skill thing, right? Like, you'll be able to see that eventually and be like, okay, that, you know, he's building the Hanging Gardens. We're not going to be able to beat him in this race. So unfortunately, we don't get it there. And it means that we might have to think about adding another World Wonder in instead of the Hanging Gardens. But let's go ahead and just finish out the turns that we've got here. We'll go ahead and take this beautiful little tile. We've got the garden that we could put down, or we could move into another settler, seeing as we're at 4 out of 4 now. It makes a lot of sense for us to do that. We can add in a granary down here, because once again, we're taking advantage of all these tiles that are down here, and that's just going to further push this up. So we'll go ahead, we'll add it into this central location, and that's going to mean that we're now producing citizens faster, and we're able to get more food out of it. So let's go ahead, and we've got another merchant up here. Waset's actually got gold that's now connected to it. So I want to come down to Waset. It didn't have the gold before, so let's move our merchant down. And now we'll be able, with this merchant, to click build a road to settlement. And we want to build the road over to Kusa. And that is now going to allow Kusa to be sending its food over to Bactria. So we get 12.5 food in here, which means that our citizens are coming out faster and we're able to build up this city sooner. On top of that, we're also looking to get our garden out, which is going to be a +5 garden. It's got 2 adjacency here, which isn't the best, but we're always going to be able to potentially put a wonder behind it and buff that up a little bit more. So I'm sure that we can work something out. You know, we could probably even look at putting I'm trying to think what the best way to do. Maybe you can even go for like a Colossus right here. Unlikely to get the Colossus though, but that's the specialization option. When it comes to specializing this town down here, this town's probably going to be reserved a little bit more just for growing, and the reason why that is because you always want to keep this as a fort town, or at least have the option to become a fort town if you need it. Machiavelli is on a warpath this game. Undoubtedly, he will be back for more, and when he is, having the option to splinter into specialize into a fort town is going to be a significant advantage for us. It means guaranteed healing, means that we're going to be okay in the event that he tries to attack into this once again. So that's something that we'll keep in the back pocket. And it means that this town will never specialize, but it does mean that because it's never going to specialize, we can definitely think about getting more production buildings in here, because there's going to be more long-term value for this town to grow. Whereas this town, it's not going to be growing. So the maximum value we're ever going to get from a brickyard is +2. Whereas this town, we may look to expand into potential more mines or more woodcutters, and that means that there's more value in that. So those are the key distinctions here when we're looking at cities, specializations, and towns that will just never specialize. Okay, it's turn 68, about to be turn 69. Nice. It is time to talk about espionage. Let's roll over as we now find ourselves with bronze working. Wonderful. We like bronze working. It was given to us completely for free. Well, I mean, we had to pay some influence for it. Our spy was unfortunately revealed, but we did actually take the tech. And that means that we've just pulled in a huge amount of science for free. We can't actually see how much it costs because it comes in under the same tech level as currency, but it is right here that we've just picked it up. So if I had to estimate, I'd say probably in the region of about 12 to 13 turns. So military training is down here. We've actually just unlocked the wheel. And the whole reason behind this is because it gives you access to the villa. The villa is an incredible building that we've only really just worked out the power of simply because it provides influence. And if you take a look at my influence at the moment, it's not looking pretty. We're sitting at +7 influence at the moment. So that means by adding in this villa, we're getting a huge amount. So normally what we want to do is pair up the villa together with the monument on the same tile. These are going to be some of the last tiles that you look to replace once you actually get into the exploration age. And the key reason behind that is because once you get in the exploration age, everything loses its yields from whatever it is down to a 2. Now there's exceptions to that. So as an example, the academy, if you take the academy legacy path or the science legacy path, will retain that. But for generally, it is going to be the case. But what is great about the villa is that it will retain that influence yield the same way that the monument will also retain the influence yield that it's got because it's not above 2. So that is one of the great things about the villa, but the sooner that we can get that, the better. So we've got another 2 turns to go on both of these villas. At the moment, we're sitting at 7 out of 54. Now, at the moment, I think that was off Pashakuti that we stole that. So we can't actually send out another technological advancement steal because we don't have the influence to do it. But however, we have sent one over towards Harriet Tubman. So we're looking to steal some government secrets. So hopefully we're going to be able to pull in a nice big civic. So I'm hoping for citizenship. You can see it's at 31 turns at the moment. So that's definitely going to be a priority for us. And hopefully we'll be able to pull that one in. So let's roll over a couple of turns here because you'll see just how quickly this this starts to build up. Let's move down into position here. One of the other things that we did very intentionally was we actually locked out sailing as well. So we were researching sailing, knowing that bronze working would potentially come through that espionage act. So if we've researched sailing, that means that we can finally get a look around the sides here. So we want to go have a look at all of the lands that Machiavelli has actually got down here to himself, by the way. So he's going to be a very, very happy camper. Just depends how much he's actually got back there. And then we can see currency is at 11 turns at the moment. So that is a very nice steal. Now, when it comes to your mid-game techs, at the moment for me, the priority is definitely getting to the wheel, as long as I don't have City Patron Goddess. I think if you've got City Patron Goddess, which is the Pantheon, so if we take a look at City Patron Goddess, +3 influence on the altar, if you've got this, there's probably not a whole lot of reason for you to rush to villas. But the sooner you get to villas, the sooner you're going to be able to begin building that influence number, and you're going to be able to steal bronze working off one of the Deity AIs for sure. If you're playing an online multiplayer game, there's probably a good chance you want to go into the barracks first, because the sooner you get stronger units, normally the less likely you are to die. Though there is an argument in saying, well, maybe just get more influence and do yourself a favor that way. So what we're going to do here is look to focus on the wheel, and then eventually we'll begin moving up towards mathematics. Normally we leave military training until last. We don't really go down into navigation that much. Currency is going to be important as well. So we'll look to pick up currency here because it will give us access to the bath together with the market and give us a specialist limit, though it's not that important at this stage of the game. But that is it. That's the little influence, or rather the espionage look, and have a look at these yields that are coming through. I'm feeling more and more grateful that we decided to be a bit greedy and take these tiles. They're starting to have a look at that. That's a nice looking farm, isn't it? But I guess that's the consequence of being near a volcano. It looks like Machiavelli's lost his monument, so he'll have to repair that one in the next turn. But we'll leave it there for this little section on espionage. It's turn 80, and it's time to talk about benchmarks, which are going to be a serious consideration for a lot of the competitive players. One thing to note is that when it comes to benchmarks, especially for things like yields, that they are going to be dependent on your spawn. So in this game, as an example, we've currently got 19 culture at turn 80, which is absolutely disastrous. But the reality is, how else could we actually have gotten it? If we take a look at Machiavelli, he doesn't have any bonuses that are going to be giving us culture. The same thing goes over for Harriet Tubman, and Pasha Kuti is exactly the same. None of these leaders are cultural, and especially not Trong Truck. She is not going to be giving us any cultural bonuses either. So when it comes to getting that cultural aspect, there's no collaborations that we're going to be able to have. We've got the one monument in our main capital that's got the mountain adjacency, but that's it. Our second city has got a monument as well, but there's no mountains for it to get adjacency from. And while there's an argument to be made that you probably could have turned this into a city and maybe gone for a crazy adjacency, maybe down over here, this actually isn't a bad idea. That's not something that we've done here, but it's one of the key considerations that you'll need to make in your games. But just keep in mind that as we move forward, that this is something that happens commonly. Normally, when it comes to science, you are going to be able to find a +2 or a +3 library, maybe even a +4. However, when it comes to the monument, generally the best you're going to be able to find is maybe a 3, probably a 2, and more than likely a 1. So that's what we've got today. Let's roll over the turn, though, because we're about to talk about our next important thing, which is going to be our legacy path. So we are on the path right now to more world wonders. We've just completed the Mundo Perdido, which we're not going to watch, because we've also completed the Emile Bell. Now, just keep in mind, this is on the Deity difficulty, so we're doing pretty well to be getting world wonders here, and that is largely because of our production focus. Keep in mind, the Pantheon that we went earlier is the Stone Circles Pantheon, and we're picking up a huge amount of bonuses from that. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles that I can see, 7 tiles in the cap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles in our second city that are all getting massive bonus, or 7 bonuses that we're getting, and these are all translating into production. So the key here is now looking to make sure that our yields stay as high as possible, and that a key component of that is going to be focusing on our science buildings as well as our culture buildings. There's only so much speed that we can do that with. So we've obviously gone and we've looked to try and get our theft in as much as we possibly can. We're stealing technology at the moment. We're going to be stealing government secrets now because we only got that a turn ago. If I remember correctly, we actually just picked up tactics, which is very nice. You can see just how long it's going to be taking us here. But every single one of these leaders, I mean, Machiavelli's arguably doing pretty well here. Now, can we just take a look at his spawn? Isn't this something of beauty? Now, have a look at the mountain range that he's got. He's got 1, 2, there's 1 tile open here, 3, 4. There's 1, 2, 3 tiles, arguably, yeah, 3 tiles that are open here. mountain, range, all the way across the continent. If you want to play on this spawn, I'll leave a link down below to where you can join the Discord. All you got to do is take the same seed, put the same leaders in the game, and then just make yourself Machiavelli as Greece, and you should pretty much get the exact same spawn as this. At least that's the way I think it should work. So I'll leave that with you. But yeah, our next benchmark is largely going to be about making sure we're meeting up in the mid game with our cultural components. So that's going to be our ancient worlds, wonders of the ancient world, and that's what we're looking to achieve here. So we're already at 3 out of 7, which is wonderful. For science, this one's always going to come naturally towards the end, and for economic, this one is also going to be coming towards the end. The trouble is leaving world wonders towards the end is always very difficult. So it's a key component early on is to look to try and secure them. So we've got the Mundo Peridito down here, which means that we can now look at getting in our garden and our market. And you can see that that is just an absolutely beautiful spot. So we think about the 4 food that we were looking at earlier, and then we think about this, and it might not look like much, you know, just being double, but remember that a specialist is going to amplify the adjacency bonuses on every single one of these tiles. And on top of that, we can probably throw down another world wonder on this tile here. How about a Gate of All Nations? No, we can't do it at Gate of All Nations there. We can do a Gate of All Nations up over here, though. So I think that's going to be our focus. Realistically, if we were to look at our yields at the moment, our gold is not really in hot demand when it comes to our food. We're absolutely fine here. It's going to take us 14 turns to grow. Adding 8 food onto that probably shaves off maybe 2 or 3 turns. So realistically, Gate of All Nations, one of the best world wonders in the game. It is going to be a mandatory pickup for us. So one of the things I love to do with these wonders is try and put them in little triangles. If you do it like a triangle like this, so we'll be putting one here, and one here. And then that means that you can actually have really good adjacencies on all 3 sides. So here we'll have the barracks together with the blacksmith. We'll have the library together with the academy. And over here, we'll have another adjacency for the Haran city. And then we can, of course, put even minor adjacencies that are out a little bit further as well. We could look to potentially put down another world wonder over here and then connect out another one over there so we can pick up double adjacencies. But that's essentially the plan. So we'll go ahead. We'll drop down the Gate of All Nations in this position, begin building that triangle, and look, we can play through a couple of turns here while I've got you, just to talk about this city and the planning that we're doing for it. So the main focus is just going to be making sure that we are picking up territory for it towards the front that are going to be yield or that are going to be food focused. So now that we've managed to do that, one of the things that we'll look to do is expand backwards. And the reason why is because out over here, we're looking to get those higher yield, or rather those cultural and science yields on this backside. So if we can find science and culture here, and then probably we could look to do another one here or here, but we want to extend this granary out towards that position. It secures this tile for us to eventually get that beautiful adjacency for us. So that's it. Let's move over onto our next point. It's turn 90, and it's time for us to talk about specialists and feeder towns. These are 2 core components that you'll deal with as you reach the mid-game in the Antiquity Age. Let's talk a little bit about specialists to start with. First and foremost, a specialist is incredibly important because it amplifies the bonuses that the tile is already giving. The example that we're going to use here is our garden and our market tiles. The first one is this, which has got an adjacency bonus of 2. The garden, together with the market, have got a base of +3 and +2 respectively, and they are getting a +2 bonus for each of those, so it goes to 5 and 4. And we compare that now down to here, which has got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 adjacency, as well as the 2 bonus that comes in on the market and the 3 bonus that comes in on the garden. So which one is the specialist going to be doing better on, and which one do we want to prioritize? Well, the answer should be clear to most people, but it really is quite important when it comes to dealing with specialists that you choose when to do it at the optimal time, because there is a correct answer and there is an incorrect answer. So this specialist right here is a correct answer, and that is because it's providing a 2.5 boost to food and gold, as well as that base of 2 science and 2 culture. You'll get that no matter the tile that you go to. You can throw it in on a saw pit and a granary, 2 buildings that are warehouse buildings, and it'll give it to you no matter what. Whereas this one right here gives you an extra 5 on top of that. So of course, we're going to put the specialist in that tile. But you might be thinking, okay, well, how about this tile? Why don't we throw a specialist in this one? And you'll see that the numbers aren't as juicy. And as a result, the purpose or putting a specialist in this tile doesn't have that same benefit. While of course it still gives you the same culture and the same science, this is really what generates the distinction between a good specialist and a great specialist, and why finding these little adjacency boosters like this one out here can be incredibly important, because these begin to compound once you get specialists. Once you get access to the second slot through the Anchor Watt, which is a world wonder, a little bit available on a, sorry, that is the wrong one. That is the Pyramid of the Sun, or the Temple of the Sun. We have got here the Anchor Watt, which increases the specialist limit in the settlement. Of course, there's another way to do it as well, through the attribute tree. So once you start researching your future technologies or your future techs, you'll be able to come down towards this one as well, which is very beneficial if you've got lovely adjacencies like this that'll just keep on giving throughout the whole game. So these are very key. So now that we've talked about specialists and when to take them and when not to take them, as an example up here, I just wouldn't take a specialist yet. There is no specialist here that is ringing out to me and saying, hey, put me in, Chief. And that is largely because we don't have any significant adjacencies yet, and because this one right here, which is going to be a contender, just isn't set up properly right now. It's got the barracks. We need to wait for the blacksmith. Once it's got a blacksmith in, that's going to give us a second building to get adjacencies off. It's already got the +1. This will be a +2. We can throw in a third +3 over here, and we can potentially look to get another world wonder in here, though arguably not the strongest of positions, just because it's only going to be getting realistically the one adjacency bonus, so probably not going to be worth it. But once we've got at the very least the +3 in and the second building, then this becomes a much greater priority for specialists. So now let's talk a little bit about feeder towns. Feeder towns are designed specifically to feed your cities. Cities are going to be predetermined. You're going to know which ones are going to be your cities, or normally you should know which ones are going to be your cities, which ones are going to be your towns. This is an example of a feeder town. The only purpose it serves is to feed the city. However, there was another purpose, and that was the iron. Iron's a strategic resource, and the more of these you have, the better. The way that combat works in Civ 7 is the same as 6 and 5. So it's not so much about the total strength of your unit and the difference from a total perspective. So as an example, like 5 versus 10, that's not double the power. It might be double the strength, but it's not double the power. Whereas if you have like 60 versus 80, that can be a significant difference. And it means that when you take a unit like the warrior and all of a sudden you give them +1 combat strength, it can start to build, especially with all the other bonuses that we've got stacked up that you would have seen earlier on in the game. It can really start to build. So when it comes to feeder towns, we're looking at two primary things. Number one, are there any good resources that we can prioritize by getting out there? And then number two, is there a food source that we can maximize once we're out there? And that's what we're looking to do here in this feeder town. So the primary food source is going to be food. So the sooner you can get your fishing key in, the better. So we'll go ahead and do that. And that's going to mean all of the adjacent tiles. That was not where I wanted to go. Let's just chuck this bad boy in over here. So we would want to be looking to try and take all of the food tiles along the shoreline. And then once we're comfortable with the number, if we look at the rollover at the moment, it's 3 turns. And that number will obviously be a lot more once we've reset, or once the citizen has reset. But once we're comfy with that number, then we can look to send it into the cap. So we've got some other cities or towns that we're going to be setting up as feeders. Once again, another perfect location right here. We've got the iron together with food, reliable food sources that are out here. We can always also look to potentially set up farms. So we could drop down a granary here. We could look to drop down a saw pit here, and then we can go farm on those tiles. We can look to potentially do so a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feeder tiles. This is going to be an absolutely perfect feeder city. So we'll go ahead. Oh my lord, we are just growing like crazy right now. Things are moving fast here. We're going to go ahead and just grab a little bit more food. Even though this is now a city, we've got a lot of the production that is going to be in here. Hold on a minute. Why is our production not shifted over yet? Now our production is shifted over. It's just not as pretty as it could be. We're slowly working towards getting our buildings up. You can see at the moment we've got the monument, we've got the villa that's coming in, but we're slowly transitioning it over. So let's go ahead and there's no real good production tiles that are in here at the moment. The consequence of going for a low production area. So we'll have to look to prioritize getting a blacksmith in here as well as a barracks. But then towards this top side, there's the iron connection. That's going to give us, I think we've got a total of 4 iron now. Yeah, 4 iron. So 4 combat strength further than what anybody who's got no iron would have, which is a welcome bonus. And then, so another location that we're going to be looking to put a feeder town down is over here. So when it comes to the tiles that it's got available, it's got this one. It will also have all of these water tiles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 water tiles that it'll have. 6th one right here, as well as the 7th being the, we'll probably throw a granary in here as well as a fishing key, and then we can just start sending food straight into these cities. So that's the general idea when it comes to the feeder towns. They are just designated feeders. They are not going to be doing anything other than just giving over their food to the cities so that the cities can grow big and prosperous. It's turn 107, and it's time to talk about maximizing adjacencies and unique buildings and unique improvements. So we'll start it off with our unique improvement. So we're playing as the Persians. Now, every civilization will have either a unique improvement or a unique buildings with a unique quarter that you'll be able to build. For us, we've got the unique improvement. So if we take a look at it, it is going to be the Paradisa. So I'm probably mispronouncing that, so apologies. But what this does is you can put this on any tile as long as it meets the specific requirements. So as an example, this is, it cannot be placed to another Paradise to Zeta. But it goes ahead and you put it on the tile, and when you do it, it actually doesn't remove the base yield of the tile. So the warehouse bonuses that you get from that tile, so stuff like the extra production from having a brickyard will not be removed from that tile. And as a result, what do we got going on here? We got ourselves a little bit of a merchant trade. Let's go ahead and finish that one up. And we'll take out some cotton and put in that. There we go. But what that will mean is that you'll be able to retain that bonus. So if we take a look, I don't know whether we've got any more in here. Looks like we've got a mine right here, which is getting some culture from the marble, but you can see that we've now picked up the culture as well as the gold. When it comes back down to this tile, it's picked up the culture and the gold, but it's also retained its initial bonuses. So these can be very powerful. As an example, the Mayan bonus is incredibly powerful. So these are always something that you want to just sort of keep an eye on, but this is more of a general guide. So just be aware of what your bonuses are. And that's pretty much it when it comes to that component. Lastly, we want to talk about maximizing adjacency bonuses. And you can see that we are really starting to build up quite a bit of, well, it looks like Civ 6. Remember back in the day, Civ 6 playing the Japanese, and you just get these crazy amounts of urban districts that would all be clustered together. It's the exact same thing here. So what we're doing is looking to maximize the amount of adjacency we're able to give to these districts. And the primary issue, as I mentioned earlier, was the fact that we didn't have any mountains around us, but that's okay. We can make our own mountains. We've got our own mountains at home, and as you can see, we've got the Emil Bell next to the Oracle, which is going to be providing a +2 adjacency to this tile, but it's also going to be providing a +2 adjacency to this tile. And what did we do? We put the amphitheater on these tiles, which means that we are now getting +4 culture from those, together with the +2 culture that's in here. So it's another 6 culture that we're then getting. Of course, we can put other buildings on this tile, but we do this to maximize the adjacency, and it allows us to cover for our weaknesses. As I earlier discussed, this is a relatively low science and cultural game, just simply because there aren't any cultural and scientific leaders other than myself, Trung Trak, which is a scientific leader, but we're not going to be sending out our influence. As you can see, we're struggling with our influence. Keep in mind, this is with, if we take a look here, you can see that we have already got our villa that's in here. We've got our monument and our villa that's over here. We've got a monument, there's our monument. We've got a monument and villa in this city. Like, we're literally capped as much as we can with regard to influence, and we're still struggling. So because of that, it means that we can't really utilize the science agreement as much, or science collaboration as much as we'd like to. So we're still working towards maximizing the bonuses that we've got, but you can start to see the numbers that we're building up here. So this is just a single library, and it's on 11 science. Here we've got the blacksmith and barracks together, and that's going to be picking up the +1. It'll have another one that'll go down here as well once we get a world wonder that we can put on this tile. So probably could look at something like Monk's Mound to throw down on this tile. And then we've already talked about the culture up towards this spot. We've got the barracks as well as the blacksmith on this tile, and they've also got a specialist that's in here, so they are very, very productive over towards this side. So we're maximizing our adjacencies. It's going quite well at this stage, despite being at turn 108. It feels like we're behind on the 8 ball, but remember that each game is a different race, and while you can be benchmarking yourself against different times, you're always going to have different land, you're always going to have a different leader, different civs that you're playing with, and that affects the timing that you're looking at. The best thing that you could do is know how to play with the land that you've got, in the circumstances that you've got, and these are those tools. So hopefully this has been helpful. Let's move over onto our next point. It's turn 116 and we finally unlocked our academies. It's felt like forever, but we made it eventually. Unfortunately, someone has beaten us here because the Pyramid of the Sun is no longer available for us to build, unfortunately. However, we can build our academies, and because we've been working on our adjacency bonuses, it means that the academy that we're going to be putting down is an absolute banger. It gets +1, +2, +3, and +4 adjacency. It's also got the specialist inside, so that means that when we go ahead and put it down, actually that's the wrong one, let's go ahead and do this one, you'll see it's a +13, which is very nice, more than doubling the science output of that tile. On top of that, typically, whenever we're looking to go and maximize yields, we're looking to do yield matching, which is where we take food and gold and we put them together. We see science and production and we put them together. And then we see culture and happiness and we put them together. However, there is an exception that you can make, and that is for the late game. Once you start really getting a lot of world wonders that are down, as an example, we've got 2 right here that are adjacent to this tile, as well as this marble. And it means that when we're looking to put down our academy, instead of going for the +7, which is right here, you could be going for the +11 instead. So that's what we're going to be looking to take advantage of. And even though it doesn't normally follow the golden rules of keeping the academy with the library or with the blacksmith or barracks and avoiding stacking up the amphitheater with something like the arena, this is still a way that you can take advantage of that. So this is one of the key distinctions that we'll make in the late game. So let's roll over now to our next point. It's probably going to be about this little guy right here. I wonder if you could possibly guess what he is going to be responsible for. Okay, it's turn 118 and it's time for us to talk about probably the most advanced technique that we'll be using in this strategy guide, and that is the Migrant Factory. A Migrant Factory occurs when a city or a town, in this case, can no longer grow. That means there's nowhere for it to go. So as an example here, you can see that this city is locked into 3 tiles. So if we go ahead and settle this, we can buy up a granary as well as a brickyard. And that's going to mean that whenever a citizen comes along here and wants to pop out in 3 turns time, it's going to have nowhere to go. And when that happens, what's going to happen is if we roll over again, I don't know why it's all, the food is a little bit bugged out right now. Excuse me. Okay, there we go. It took a while for it to wake up. Let's set these guys all onto cultural festival so that we don't have to worry about it. But what's going to happen is a migrant is going to spawn. And often players will look at a town as a great way of feeding a city, and that's true. If we were to take this town right here and look to feed it into Parser, how much would it actually grow this city? Well, at the moment, we need 4,373 food to grow to our next population, which will become a specialist. However, there is another way, and that is the migrant. As an example, if we take a look down here, it's 43.5 food. So if we assume that this town is roughly comparable to this one right here, which one is better to settle? Is it this one, which is going to be pulling you in 43.5 food per turn? And obviously it also provides other things. It provides resources. It provides you a trickle of gold that's coming through. However, this town here is providing you a significant amount of food. In fact, this one is providing arguably about 1,000 times more food. Probably not that much, probably a little bit less, but just keep in mind, this is going to, very quickly, it is going to go up. So let's expand over with this town, and once again, we'll go ahead and we'll set this one to a fishing town, which is going to be providing 36.2 food. Lovely. And we'll go ahead and put a cultural festival in. And we're about to unlock the Sanchi Stupa. Now, the Sanchi Stupa hasn't been built yet, and that means that you can combine the Migrant with the Sanchi Stupa. Now, you keep in mind you can do this with any world wonder that you haven't built yet, or you can also technically do it with any building as well. We've lost all of our nameplates. All right, there's the Sanchi Stupa. We'll go ahead and change our policies. So keeping in mind that we want to have our food policies in whenever we're doing this. 2 food in all settlements, 25% food in all towns. And there's nothing in here that makes me scream out that things need to be changed. Oratory, we don't really need it at the moment. Let's go ahead and we're going to take the Codex, I suspect, probably because we're getting pretty close to it. Yeah, we're getting pretty close towards that limit now. And we'll go ahead and put currency in. Sorry, just a little bit of admin work right here. But we are very close now to being able to do this. So you've got the Sanchi Stupa that's available on this tile. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this migrant, even though we've got 23 turns left on the next citizen, and we're going to put it on this tile. And then we're going to take the Sanchi Stupa, and we're going to put it on top of that tile. We're going to say, we want to build the Sanchi Stupa. And all of a sudden, that migrant that you once put on that tile is now available for you to reallocate as a specialist. So you'll add them as a specialist. And now all of a sudden, because you cancelled the Sanchi Stupa, your migrant wants to once again work on that tile, and your Sanchi Stupa wants to all of a sudden go down on that tile. So again, you'll cancel the Sanchi Stupa, and you've now got another migrant to allocate. And this is how, in a very short time frame, your city can go to an absolute bonkers amount of population. And already you can see it's going to take 45 turns for us to grow. If we take a look at the cost, we're now up to almost 7,000 food required to grow. So the value of the Migrant Factory continues to grow as the game pumps out more and more migrants. So let's go ahead and we'll chuck this migrant into the amphitheater, a single lone amphitheater right here. Now, we are working towards philosophy, which will give us access to the Angkor Wat. But in the meantime, instead of building the Sanchi Stupa, what we're going to do is just continue doing our cultural festival over and over and over again. That's going to continue pumping our culture numbers up. We're now down to 8 turns. We'll continue doing that. And every time we get a migrant, we're just going to, oh, look at this. This is actually quite good for us. +3 food in towns. And hey, what have we got over here? Well, we've got a town with the migrants. So we're going to go ahead and get that migrant town pumping. And now all of a sudden, we've decided once again, so we want to bring this bad boy over. I don't think there's any way we can do it this turn, but we can do it on the next turn. And in this position, we can probably look to go into military training here. And now we're going to be able to further pump this up. Now, I'm sure people will probably look at this and say, okay, this looks like an exploit. But you've got to understand that at the same time, all the mechanics that are in the game, designed by the devs, are intentional. The migrant mechanic is 100% intentional. That is a planned component of it. Reallocation of citizens in the early game is a planned component of the way that this game works. Early on, we looked to reallocate the citizen that went over across into this kaolin tile. It was a farm initially that we put down, then we took the kaolin tile, then we put the granary on top and reallocated that citizen out into the wool tile. This is a key component of the way the game works. Now, of course, there's an easy way to patch this. As an example, if they just make it so that when you cancel the Sanchi Stupa, it still keeps the remnants on the tile, that you can't then take a migrant and then put that migrant down on the tile. So I'm confident in the future this will probably be patched out, and they will say, look, it wasn't an intended component of this play. But look, until that actually does get patched out, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, well, I think it's still pretty damn cool. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use it. I'm going to keep pumping my specialists up. I think it's a pretty cool mechanic. I like the cut of its jib. It's turn 161. It's been a particularly long game that's happened here just because of the low yields environment that we've had, but it is about to end. And what we're doing is we're preparing ourselves for our final turn. This is where we're going to look to try and maximize the bonuses we're going to be able to take into the exploration age. We're at 96% on the age progress, but when future tech is completed, it's going to push us up to 100%. If we have a look at how we're doing, we've got culture at 100%, military sitting at the moment 8 out of the 12 that we need. Science is sitting at I think that's 6 out of 10, and economic is complete. So we'll go ahead, we'll roll over the turn, and that is going to give us future tech completed with 100%. So now what we need to do is we need to slot in our relics. So we'll go ahead and drop these bad boys in, and that should hopefully now give us our milestone. That's going to give us our Great Library, which means we've now completed the Great Library legacy path. And then also we're going to now put down our 4 settlers that we prepared a little bit earlier. And this, oh, look at this. It looks like we had a contestant for another expansion out here. That's going to be 2. That's going to be 3. And this will now give us our 4th one, which now gives us a total of 3 legacy points that we can now take into the final or into the exploration age. And the reason why we leave the towns until the very end is just simply because it can be quite difficult supporting the happiness burden that is across the entire empire. You can see right now we're sitting at -21. Some of these towns are going to be terrible. There's a -8, -3, -21 over here. Look, this isn't going to be the most fun place to live. I can say that much right now. I can understand why they're unhappy. But that rounds us out. So now, with that finally completed, we can take a look at the narrative choice, and the question is, who will carry our legacy? So let's force end turn. We're going to roll over now to the antiquity age comes to an end. We've got our experience for completing this with Chung Trak. And now we can talk a little bit just about the transition into the exploration age, because there's a couple of things that people often miss. So we've managed to pick up every single achievement that there is. We got the 7 World Wonders. We got we got the 12 out of 12. We got the codexes required, even though we're all the way down the bottom. And we did also manage to get the Silk Roads. So we'll go ahead now and take a look at the legacy paths. You can see that we are well and truly ahead of everybody else. And we can view the Legends report, see the experience that we got. We've also unlocked, what have we got? Elephantine Encouragement. We don't actually know what it does though. But we're now going to head over towards the Civ pick screen, which I'm going to be becoming intimately familiar with because I'm going to be doing a lot of Exploration Age content. This is the last video that we're doing on the Antiquity for the moment. And the most important thing that people often forget is that you want to change mementos. Changing mementos down here is it's very subtle, but it's quite big. So we didn't start that game, or we didn't play that game with any mementos, but I'll give you a hint at a really good one. It's this one right here. It allows you to start with an additional social policy. It seems pretty simple, but by picking that up, we can start off, let's say as an example, as the Abbasids. We'll just pick them, but it means that now we can run in with one of our existing traditions on top of what we were already going to have. So just by that small little detail, and it can be very easy to forget about that. I still find myself forgetting about it just because I kind of rush through it sometimes. It's like, all right, click Hawaii, that sort of thing. But now it means that if we go and look at our social policies, we've now got an extra social policy slot that we can just go and slot all of our traditions into immediately from the beginning of the game. And this can be quite impactful if you're playing as Moria and you've got access to a whole bunch of, science or a whole bunch of gold, then that is going to be a huge bonus. Now, by the end of this game, we ended up having a total of 3 cities. So our first city, our second city was down here, and our third city was over here. This one was definitely the underperformer with regard to the city, or with regard to the other two. But we always knew that was going to be the case. It was mainly desired just to increase that little bit of culture as much as we possibly could. So just to quickly guide you through the legacy choices for the beginning of the Exploration Age, even though this is largely about the Age of Antiquity, I think it's important that we still touch on the beginning of exploration, just because you're obviously setting yourself up for success. Now, you went ahead and settled a whole bunch of stuff at the end of that turn. You're at 12 out of 8 with regard to your settlement limit. How do you get that up? You take fealty. This is a mandatory one for me. You got to take it. We'll go ahead and we'll grab an expansionist attribute point as well as a militaristic attribute point. That'll round us out for all of those legacy. Actually, we've got a wild card in here. Let's make it instead. We'll just grab the expansionist one. Now, when it comes to additional, or with regard to culture, this will largely depend on your playstyle, the civilizations that you're playing, and how good the adjacency bonuses that you got were. So we got some pretty crazy adjacency for both our academies as well as our amphitheaters. So it will depend on how good yours are and what you want to prioritize as you head into the next age. But for us here, we're not going to grab the wonders of the ancient world. Instead, we'll just go for something more simple. So +1 culture for every 5 excess happiness in settlements you founded. Yeah, I think we're going to prefer something like wonders. This one here, even that's not that strong. You know what? Let's just go inward perfectionist. We'll grab a cultural attribute point. We've still got that one wild card that's sitting in there. All of your cities from the previous age remain cities. We're not going to take this because it's very cheap for us to transition them over. We'll take we'll take the Great Library Golden Age. We'll also take the Master Caravaneer, grab the economic point. And from here, we can go for this age gain 15% science at a cost of 10% culture. I don't think that sounds like a very good deal. Let's just go ahead. We'll just take the extra 10 science here. Actually, you know what's probably going to be better? Let's take the science points. We'll grab 2 science points, and we could potentially look at moving the capital because that would technically give us a second city. We've got 2k gold in the bank. Let's not do it. We'll just keep the capital the same for the moment. We'll confirm legacies, and just to quickly roll us over. So this is part of the reason why you don't take the economic golden age one. So what you're going to do is just take your smallest previous city, and you're just going to convert it, and that's only going to be 200 gold. And then you're going to take your other previous smallest city, and that's the order that you're going to do it in, and you're always going to start with the smallest one and then move them on, and then that's only cost us 400 gold. So I don't know why we'd ever take the legacy where it's like, oh, your cities remain cities. I was like, well, I just paid 400 gold. That's literally all it costs, 400 gold, and now I've got everything. We've retained our adjacency bonuses here for our academies, so they're going to be absolutely popping us off, giving us heaps of science through the early game, and we've got a whole bunch of points that we can now spend as well. So we'll leave it there, folks. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's taught you a thing or two. If you have enjoyed it, I encourage you to leave a like down below. If you've got any questions, any comments, make sure you go ahead and hit that that subscribe button. If you've got any questions or any comments, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment down below, or join the Discord where we've got more than 5,000 members now. So come on, say g'day. And of course, if you're looking forward to more Civ 7 content, then make sure you hit the subscribe button, because there is always time for one more turn.